What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTB Ravens Media. The Ravens were able to take down the Bengals in an absolute thriller. This is our kind of reaction and discussion
Yeah.
about that game. So, anybody watching along, let us know any questions and or comments or concerns. But Joshua, Ravens win by
Yeah.
3 points in OT, come back down. I think the biggest lead was only 10, but they came back basically trailing the entire second half. What was your initial reaction to that entire crazy game?
So I mean, honestly, so the beginning of the game, I was cool. I was cool. I was calm. I was copacetic. I was the three C's because I mean, it's an AFC North rivalry game. Let's be real. Anything's going to happen. The Baltimore Ravens can either play up to the competition or they can play above the competition, like they did Sunday night against the Bills. I'm not saying that the Cincinnati Bengals are a team to take lightly. Our secondary, they did get worked. I mean, that happens. Sometimes when our secondary go against some of the best wide receiving cores, and Jamar Chase is Jamar Chase. He's one of them. He's him. He did what he does best. And we've had a track history against Cincinnati Bengal number one wide receivers from Ocho Cinco, AJ Green, now him. So when things start getting a little dicey, I'm not gonna lie to you, McConnell. I had to take a quick nap. Um, in between. I had to take a quick nap in between because man, I wasn't doubting them. I wasn't counting the team out, but it was looking a little rough. But to see that they battled through OT to get the win, and the way Derrick Henry, I know we all talk about Lamar Jackson, how he's the GOAT and how he does, Houdini tricks. I mean, shout out to him because we see the progression and how he's doing this at a master class. But shout out to having a premier running back. Yes, he's still a premier running back. I don't care what anybody says at the age of 30 because he's doing the dang on thing, and put us in position to win. So it was a good overall game in my opinion.
Yeah, this is the game that you have to expect in an AFC North rivalry game. You have to expect it's going to be close. The Ravens, horrific end of the first half. Like going for it. I don't hate the going for it if you run QB sneak. They did run QB sneak. They get the first down. But the fact that they're like calling a play with 1 second before the 2-minute warning, and then they're using their timeouts on 3rd and 10, and they're just like play a little conservative to end the half. Like you have a lead. This is a big rivalry game. You're on the road. Just take it into the half and, maybe just don't call that timeout. That'll save another 30 seconds of clock so that the Bengals can't get a touchdown with however much they got a touchdown with 9 seconds left in the first half to take the lead. But really just some lack of execution in some place, the safety, unknown who missed necessarily the block. It was either Rosengarten's or it was Daniel Faalele's block. We don't know the exact play call, but Faalele shoots inside, and then Rosengarten kicks outside, and nobody covered the guy lined up in between them. And that's not the guy that you want Patrick Ricard blocking. You want Patrick Ricard blocking the next level. So, good play by, I think it was Hubbard that was able to get that safety. But the Ravens ended up battling back. The secondary really struggled. I don't even know if it was necessarily play calling. I think it was just Jamar Chase and T. Higgins were better than the guys that were covering them. And the biggest thing that I'm noticing is teams are just throwing at Brandon Stevens. And unfortunately, it's like the ball skills have disappeared for a second. Like we haven't really seen him because last year he was so good at turning his head and he started getting those interceptions and swats. It's not happening this year. It's like he's regressed back to that younger form of himself where he's in good positioning and he's just not making the plays. Marcus Williams isn't getting to his spots well, and that's just leading to these situations where they're getting big plays. Andre Yosivas down the sideline, Jamar Chase on a deep post. T. Higgins wasn't able to come up with the a big catch on the sideline, but just lack of execution and lack of tackling. Malik Harrison is out there, out wide, is unable to shed a block, and Jamar Chase is able to take a screen for like 70 yards to the house. Those are things that you can't have happen in the secondary, and I'm glad we brought back Dean Pease, because I think he'll help with that. He's a very smart defensive coordinator, and him being in the building will definitely help Zachary or just with that experience. And Ron Aaron says on the touchdown, the Ravens were in cover 3 and Marlon got lazy and kind of dropped. And Eddie Jackson was in position. But overall, they're out of position or just being lazy. Yeah, like a lot of people are trying to blame Zachary Orr. And I'm not going to say like he's doing a fantastic job. But at some point, the players have to execute. And they're not executing. Like they're like whether it's miscommunications or just not putting in the effort, there are too many just errors in this defense. And that's why when teams all of a sudden start just throwing every play against the Ravens, they're having a lot more success because the Ravens are just trying to shut down the run, which they're great at. But the secondary it looks confused at all times. Like it's like they never have an idea of what they're supposed to be doing.
Man, speaking of the run, was it Chase Brown, running back?
Yeah.
He wasn't looking bad. I mean, of course I don't want to give props to a rivalry team, but when your offensive linemen again to their blocking assignments and our defensive line, it was like, where's the push? Where's the momentum? We've had a lot of moments. And we got to show Zachary Orr some grace. We showed Mike McDonald grace when he finally took over as DC as his first year. And when in his first year as defense coordinator, he didn't do all that hot as well. But one thing I'm realizing, this is the Ravens' way of trying to keep guys fresh and not trying to run them down. I respect that. I get that philosophy, but honestly, you got to keep your playmakers in the game. So when I see, Chase Brown gouging up the seams, the holes, and making things happen in the run game, and I see Michael Pierce, I don't know how you feel about McConnell, but he's kind of reminded me, he's playing that role of Brandon Williams. He's here and he's there. He's at this point he's collecting a check. I would rather see the Broderick Washington or Travis Jones. Let him keep on flourishing, especially while so much attention is around Nnamdi Madubuike. Shout out to Zach Orr and company of lining them up in different positions on that defensive line. He is showing that he can get all around on that defensive line and be effective. I just feel like we got some continued work to do. I mean, we got the Battle of the Beltway coming up. Jaden Daniels, he's one of the hottest rookies right now in the NFL. And we just got to keep on working at it. We just got to keep on getting better. And, it's only week 6. It's only week 6. The only thing we can do is go up and stay injury-free. I'm knocking on wood.
Yeah. I mean, we got to figure out where certain guys are going to play. And Wrong Side, this is a really good point, basically saying that Kyle Hamilton seems to be away from the action a lot of times. When Kyle Hamilton is making plays this year, it's just been in the run game. And it's not even necessarily him in the run game close to the line of scrimmage. He's like playing over top and he's able to shoot a gap very well and diagnose it. Now, this is one of two things. One, we're just putting Kyle Hamilton, kind of in isolation, having him lock down his own spot. Or what I think is more likely is teams are just avoiding Kyle Hamilton. Because it's not like we're seeing situations where, like in this game, obviously Chase was the dominant factor. Chase, 10 receptions, like basically 200 yards, 193, 12 targets. But T. Higgins was 9 receptions, 14 targets. So like they're spreading the ball around, and it felt like, a lot of it, I don't know the exact numbers of targeted, how many times corners were targeted, but it was like, okay, they're just throwing at certain players. Like they were throwing at Brandon Stevens. So I think teams are avoiding Marlon. We're not necessarily putting Nate on the top two guys, which I think is totally fine. So they're not necessarily throwing Nate Wiggins as much. They're throwing to the first or second option, whoever Brandon Stevens has been on. And that means that Kyle Hamilton isn't getting involved because he's not covering the outside wide receivers. He's sitting over the middle. The tight ends did not do very much this game. The running backs out of the backfield, weren't like a major threat. They had some plays, but it was not something where I'm watching and I'm like, oh man, we got to stop this. Now, the only thing was, man, we got to just stop having Brandon Stevens in isolation against top tier wide receivers. And that's one of the things that, has been frustrating with this Ravens defense for a couple of years now, even under Mike McDonald, was we would face teams and it was like, oh, every facet of the defense works except for one part. And that one part would be like, dude, why is this guy in single coverage like all game long? Whether it's Tyreek Hill, whether it's Jamar Chase, whether it's Devontae Adams. Those are kind of the premier receivers that we face. CeeDee Lamb, when we played Dallas, Dak just kept missing him. He was not making the best of throws to him. But like these guys are just sitting in one-on-one coverage with players that are, I hate to say it, but better than them, right? Marlon Humphrey, I don't think is a top 5 cornerback in the NFL. I think Marlon is good. I think Marlon is a good number 1 corner. If you throw him in the top 10, I'm not going to be upset, right? But Jamar Chase is a top 5 wide receiver. Devontae Adams is a top 5 wide receiver. CeeDee Lamb is a top 5 wide receiver. We need to stop just throwing these guys in man coverage against players that are, if we're being honest, better than them. Like, don't put your team in that situation. We're playing the Bengals. Who cares if the Bengals try and run the ball? Like, we don't need to be trying to sell out and stop it. We need to be doubling up on some of these guys to make sure that they don't catch it, right? Have the third wide receiver beat you. Have it be Josephus that beats you. Don't make it be Joe Burrow. And luckily the Ravens were able to get some good pressure, get some good sacks. But really this game came down to Lamar Jackson being able to make a couple of plays down the stretch of this game, because we haven't seen it very much, but the Ravens going into that 2-minute offense in like the third quarter, they started doing that. They just started going up tempo. They started going fast. We have not seen that offense in a couple of years where you're watching the Ravens. You're like, oh, they're like explosive and they're trying to be explosive and it's still working, because the Bengals knew the Ravens were trying to score quick and yet the Ravens were still scoring quickly. Whether it's because of a seam route to Charlie Kohler or it's, just long crossers to Zay or Bateman. This Ravens team is doing a very good job of getting down the field quickly, which is very nice to see. The thing is, they just have to get their defense to slow up the other team's offense, because we're not getting off the field on third down. I don't care if it's 3rd and 20. I'm not confident the Ravens are getting a stop. The only time I'm confident the Ravens are getting a stop, 3rd and 2 or less. And it's like, oh, the other team's going to run the ball. I'm like, oh, we got this. And we saw that in this game. Like, they try and run it up the middle. I can't remember if it was Moss or Brown, but they run it up the middle and Madubuike gets great push. The guy has to sidestep, and then Roquan Smith just like suplexes the guy, just flips him out of nowhere. And you're like, oh yeah. Get him into running third downs. Like, we need to stop forcing incompletions on 1st and 2nd down, so that, because 3rd and long, we're getting cooked every time we get cooked on 3rd and long.
I'm trying to pull up the team's schedule. Let's see. Okay. We got, I don't know why we not night game, but I guess Jaden Daniels come this Sunday. But hey, it is what it is. CBS, I heard CBS supposedly blocked it. So I mean, with the Commanders, that's a fair decent wide receiver core over there that they have. Following that, we got Tampa, Cleveland, Denver, Cincinnati again, Pittsburgh, Los Angeles Chargers, Eagles, the Giants, Steelers, Houston Texans, and Cleveland. I'm not trying to discredit any team, but out of those guys, out of those teams, it might be 4 strong wide receiver cores that may give us a little issue. I got the Commanders, Cincinnati again, the Eagles, depending on how healthy they are around that time that we play them. And who else? Tampa. I don't got the Chargers because they're literally about to run the same. We're going to be playing against the same offense that we ran a couple years ago.
I think Tampa's going to cook us. I don't think we're stopping Mike Evans and Chris Godwin with how the defense is playing right now.
So, okay, 5. Because even though Nico Collins won't be available for Houston on Christmas Day, they still got a good core.
Yeah.
I mean, let's talk about it. Like you said, Brandon ball skills, no ball skills Stevens. He is still fresh. He's still a baby at this playing defensive back. I mean, originally, he was a safety. And before that, he was a running back, So, I mean, did he have a leap last year? Of course. Hell yeah. I don't know what's going on. Maybe he can get back to that juice, that fire that he had last year. Marcus Williams, this is literally week 6, and he has not got a pick as of yet. That's kind of rough. With Marlon Humphrey, we all know that Marlon Humphrey is on the decline, and he's just a physical corner. In his beginning years, he used to be physical. Not used to be. He's still physical, but he used to have speed go along with that physicality. Now we're seeing he just has the physicality, and he doesn't have as much speed as he used to. That's why he kind of, made that reference. He thought he was going to get moved back to safety, which, in my opinion, with how he plays, would make more sense. Because, even right now, with Eddie Jackson, I'm not going to say it's worthless having him on the field, but if he's supposed to be playing the role of Geno Stone, of being there at the right place, right time, it's not really effective at this moment in time. I would take a Bo Braid at this moment. I would give him a shot. Baltimore, it don't even matter what side of the ball it is. We always find guys that's cheap and can play multiple positions. I think it was a kind of a shocker maybe to us when we went ahead and drafted Nate Wiggins. I think they understood and knew that it's time to get some more young blood. It's time to get some fresh, actual, true corners inside this facility, which I think we're going to have to do again. It's nothing against Brandon Stevens. It's just we need guys that have been playing those roles since damn near high school. That's been good at it. That was ranked top 100 at ESPN. We need guys that, oh, yeah, you just got in the NFL. You got the size. You got the speed. We're just going to switch you over here. No, that's not going to always work with everybody. And shout out to the ones that it did work for. I don't know. We brought back Pepe Williams. I don't know if he can make the 53-man roster. I'm looking forward to seeing him, possibly getting out there on the field, or maybe even using Ardarius Washington in the role that we use Eddie Jackson more, because even Ardarius shows that he can actually, guard the wide receivers. He plays big, and he knows how to get around the ball. He doesn't get the interceptions, but he does get the deflections. So, the NFL has evolved, of course. It's becoming a more pass-happy, and the Ravens, it seems like they slowly catch up with the times. They still do, we talk about it so many times. The whole NFL zigs while the Baltimore Ravens zag. And does it work? Yeah. During the regular season, it does work. But then when you're trying to zig in the AFC Championship game or the playoffs, instead of doing what got you there, that's when the issue and the problem comes along. Like, I love that we're picking up the steam when the offensive side of the ball so early. I truly can see us going to the AFC Championship game again against Kansas City. My whole question is, are we going to continue to zag while the rest of the NFL zigs? Because we sometimes go away from what gets us there, and they do not give Derrick Henry the 15 plus touches that he needs. If the defense cannot stop a ailing wide receiver group in Kansas City, I don't know. I don't know. But I mean, the secondary is definitely going to continue to be battle tested. I think it's going to make them better. I think Zachary Orr having Dean Pease in there as a defensive advisor is also going to make him better as a play caller. Play caller. But like you said, McConnell, at the end of the day, the player's got to execute. I mean, if you know your assignment, do your assignment and just get out there and play ball, man.
Yeah, and when you look at this Ravens defense and what the rest of the league is doing, there's two defensive schemes that are working. There's the cover zero scheme, which, teams are doing, off and on. They will just cover zero blitz, and it's pretty good. But then the other thing that they're doing is they're running cover four. They are saying you will not beat us over the top. You will have to go slowly and methodically down the field. What does that mean? That means teams will allow more checkdowns in order to, create more play opportunities, which then might lead to turnovers or mistakes or holding penalties, and help them out. But the Ravens they don't appear to be like really trying to stop this deep play, but they're trying to like stop the check down is like the biggest thing they're trying to stop, but it's allowing this middle of the field and deep shots to just be open consistently, which is why I said I'm more confident in the Ravens getting a stop on 3rd and short than I am on them getting a stop on 3rd and medium or 3rd and long, because these 15-yard routes, whether it's a shallow post, right? They call a dig route. They call, just a, 2 streaks on, the same side, and we have to have our players choose. That is getting open against the Ravens defense because we're trying to shut down underneath so much that I think it's hurting our defense in the long run, because tight ends are slipping in behind our linebackers. We saw that a lot in the Dallas game. That's what was killing us in Dallas game was Ferguson was just getting behind Roquan and Kyle Hamilton, because that's where they're sitting. They're sitting 10 yards, and then they're just getting 15 to 20 consistently. In this game, it just felt like we weren't really covering the deep sideline or the deep down the middle of the field. And it's, again, the Bengals aren't taking a lot of checkdowns, but they're just throwing at the sideline in this intermediate to deep ball range. And every time it's one-on-one covered, and because they have good talented wide receivers, they're open. You look at how the Raiders beat us. Devontae Adams, one-on-one with a corner, 15 to 25 yards down the field on a back shoulder fade. Every time. Like every time they needed a play, that's what they ran. They probably ran it 4 or 5 times. And he may only have caught 2 or 3 of them, but I think he drew 3 or 4 penalties in addition to that. So when you're looking at the way that this defense is being run, I think there's way too much of an emphasis on like, oh, you're not getting anything easy. But instead, they're saying everything that you do get, they're playing like high risk, like low reward, because they're not forcing turnovers. So what they're doing is they're risking the overtop. They're risking 15 plus yards down the field. That's the risk. That has a chance of being open. But they're saying like, hey, if you throw it short, it's not going to work. So like the downside, like the best case scenario for the Ravens defense, how it's working right now is like maybe a coverage sack, but that's not happening too often. So like in reality, for the coverage to work, it's just like, okay, incomplete pass, maybe like a 1 yard gain. Like that's a good play on defense. You're happy with that. But every time the defense doesn't work, it's, oh man, that was another 15-yard chunk play.
Yeah.
And if I'm a defense, I'd rather say, don't give him the 15-yard chunk play. Give him the guy in the flat, right? If he wants to take Chase Brown sitting at the line of scrimmage and he wants to turn and try and run upfield and gain 4 or 5 yards, I don't care. Like, he's going to run into a Roquan hit. Like, it's just going to be more physically demanding, and it's going to force these teams to have more plays, and get our defense more opportunities for turnovers rather than our defense just going out there and being like, oh, man, we gave up another huge play down the sideline or another huge play down the middle of the field. And this is something that I'm really happy with the Dean Pease acquisition, because Dean Pease, if we all remember in Baltimore, Dean Pease was the master of he gave you the little ball. And teams, we didn't force a lot of turnovers back then. We didn't really have turnover guys. Like, we could get sacks, we could tackle in open space, but the Ravens defense was just restricting yards because teams take checkdowns, they get into 3rd and short, and that's when this defense would flourish. Now, Dean Pease's defenses also were terrible in 3rd and long situations because, again, his defense, was based on certain things. So I just want to see this defense give up the shallow stuff and just focus on, hey, don't get beat deep. Like in that Dallas game, we had plays where it's like, oh, at the end of the half, and you're like, dude, why are we not playing like prevent defense? How is Jamar Chase getting a deep post open? Because whether it was a missed coverage or whatever, like it looked like the safety just didn't even try and get over. But like, why are we not having like guys over the top, like watching this exact thing? We're just not doing it. Zachary Orr needs to get a handle of it. And I hope Dean Pease will help him do that. Help him see that, hey, we need to slow down opposing teams' offense because we're trying to slow the game down. Our offense is designed to chew clock.
Yeah. The father of don't bend, don't break. I mean, it's taught in high school. It's taught in Pop Warner to keep the opposing offense in front of you. Like you said, don't give up a lot. So I mean, this is something that definitely be figured out. I think I'm not gonna say go automatic to the drawing board, but I definitely feel like he needs to reevaluate his personnel of who needs to be out there on the field doing passing and running plays, or who needs to be in pass coverage. Because I love Uncle Ro. I love the sheriff. I'm glad that we have him here in Baltimore. I'm not going, say too much bad against him, but he's a run stopping stuffing linebacker. He's not a Fred Warner, where Fred Warner is pretty much a field general. Yes, I'm using terms from college football. Whereas, a Trenton Simpson is a true pass coverage linebacker. I would love to see him more on the field, during those passing plays, things of that nature. I would love to see Travis Jones, being utilized more. Him and Metabike in the interior is a recipe for disaster, and in a great way too. If those two can collapse the middle, how we can see Adafio Way get those 10 sacks. We can see David Ojabo get those 5 sacks. Maybe Yannick Ngakwe get another 3 to 5 sacks. Some things have to change in order to, save face. And right now, our secondary is getting abused. So how do you stop it? You get your front 7, put them in a 1-3 technique, wide side, and let them do their thing. Run the stunts, get the blitzes, put pressures on the QB. Let those guys create enough havoc to let the secondary look so great, because right now it's getting exposed. And I think McConnell, I forgot what year it was, and things wasn't looking right. Matter of fact, either was year before, either last year or year before last, we had all the injuries, and they was happening early in the season. But all those injuries end up leading up to us getting our guys when it mattered the most. So maybe these growing pains are happening early for a reason. So maybe we can see by time, because they're not going to they're not going to get it together by this Sunday. I'm a realist. Um, but maybe by week 8, week 10, when those games really count, when those games that are supposed to be where the run game supposed to be, dominant, but still the NFL is still going to pass the ball in late November and December. Maybe that's when our secondary truly comes alive. Zachary Orr gets his is really truly settled in the play calling, and this defensive side comes together and play Ravens football the way we know it. Because I think this offense can sustain being a high powered, a lot of providing a lot of points, but we don't want to run them out of gas neither, because eventually, sometimes when we play against those teams where you got to battle to go score for score, it's not always there. And the way our offense is set up, it's supposed to wear you down, like you said. Take time out the clock for us to have the most time in the TOP. And we can't do that against offenses that just goes up and down the field and shred us, passing the ball. We can't do that. We can't do that this year. So hopefully the defense start catching up with the offense and we can get that balance that, we truly seek, because it's there. We just gotta endure some growing pains, family. That's what's going on right now.
Yeah, we have to just keep in mind, remember, Zachary Orr's only called 5 games. He's never been a DC. He's never been a play caller. Mm-hmm. So having DNPs will help with that. But this Ravens team, yes, they can, like you said, they can win in shootouts. If this Ravens team wanted, they could go out there and probably put up 40 every week. But in reality, their goal is, it would be great if we had a 9-minute drive here and Derrick Henry has, 43 rush yards, Justice Hill has 15, and, we throw a couple of passes to the tight ends. Like, we don't like that's like what would be great for the Ravens, because then you're taking the other team's offense out of rhythm. You're having them wait on the sideline, and it's just plain demoralizing going against a team where you're like, and, we saw this as Ravens fans going against the Bengals, where you're like, dude, we cannot get them off the field. And then the Ravens would get the ball, they'd score in like 4 plays. Bengals would get it back, long drive. And it's just like, dude, just get them off the field. And it's frustrating to watch. When the Ravens are going out there like they did against the Bills, and they're just running the ball very effectively, they're hitting the tight ends, they're efficient in the passing game, that is the Ravens team when they're at their best. This game against Cincinnati, it was not the Ravens at their best. But that goes to show, when the Ravens aren't playing, what they want to do, they can still get it done. If a team, the old phrase of like how to beat the Ravens, make Lamar pass, that's not how to beat the Ravens. That's not how the Ravens want to play. They would much rather run the ball. Lamar Jackson has said, he's like, dude, like, if we can hand it off to Derrick Henry probably every play, and Lamar didn't even have to throw a single pass, Lamar would probably be happy. He'd be like, sweet. That's an easy win right there. But you're not going to be able to do that every week. Teams are going to be good at stopping the run sometimes. Teams are going to lock in on certain things. You just have to make sure that you're able to adapt and adjust, and hopefully the defense is able to get a couple of stops. And luckily, we have to shout out Marlon Humphrey. He was able to get us that stop, because in the second half, the Bengals, it just seemed like, dude, we're not stopping them. And they're driving down. There's, 3 minutes left in the game, and Marlon jumps that slant route, and it was like, there we go. Like that's what we needed. And as soon as we got that, the game completely switched. We did a great job on the Bengals' last drive of regulation. We got the sack, and then I think we had an incompletion forced, and then it might have been like a check down that got a couple of yards, but basically ended the game or regulation going into overtime. They get the ball in the overtime, and they stupidly decide to run the ball 3 times in a row, which is our specialty on defense. We force a 50-plus yard field goal. They miss it. But when you run the ball and take the lead, which is what the Ravens had in the first half, they were running the ball. They had the lead. They completely mismanaged the end of the first half. And all of a sudden, the Bengals had the lead. And that changed the way that the Ravens had to play. The Ravens play very different when they're losing to when they're winning. We've seen it in every playoff game under John Harbaugh. We've seen it every time we play the Chiefs. It's like they're terrified to even attempt a run play because they think like, oh no, we run the ball one time, the quarter's over. Like it's done. The game is over if we run the ball. So the Ravens got to get out in front because if they do, their defense is rested. They're going to be able to make more plays because that was an issue in this game was the defense was out there way more than the offense in the second half, and they're gassed. And so when the Bengals bring out Andre Iosivas, the Ravens have their same guys out there. Iosivas gets by us. Jamar Chase gets by us. You have to get your defense some rest. And when your offense, this is just like the Miami Dolphins, one of their biggest issues, is when you score a 3-play touchdown drive, your defense is still tired. And you're not going against a team that is just running the ball because you can't run against the Ravens. You're having to play in-depth pass coverage almost every snap. And that's very difficult.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's early. It's early. We still got some work to do. There's been a lot of things swirling around about Ravens showing interest in Devontae Adams, then the whole we're not interested. About Andrews, that's been since week 1 about trading him. I'm gonna let y'all know now. We're not gonna trade him. He don't have no trade value. I'm gonna be real. Right now, he doesn't have any trade value. And honestly, what are you gonna try to ask for him? Devin White, 26 years old. I don't know exactly what went on in Philly, but if he's at 100% healthy, I don't know. To add another linebacker that has some of the speed and possible upside as him, that might be a possibility for that front seven. Because, like I said, right now, I'm not going to say the cancer, but the problem is with the secondary. But sometimes if you can shield it or cover it with the front seven, with their nastiness and ferociousness and how they get at the QB, it can open up some doors for that back seven to have some rest. They don't have to worry about guarding so heavy or hard. Not saying passes are not going to get out, but if we applying the pressure that we used to, it can alleviate some of that pressure on that secondary. Oh damn, wrong siren. We can talk about that. I don't. Yeah. I don't know if it's going to mess up the chemistry. In my opinion, I think if we look at it, it's a shiny new piece, almost like the Odell Beckham effect, the Dez Bryant effect. The only thing about it is Devontae Adams has way more juice than both the guys I named. He's still a strong, decent route runner. And I think if he was to come to Baltimore, the diva mentality would not be in full effect because you know what type of offense you're about to step into, which is a run-heavy offense. Now, if I'm saying, am I saying it can be done? No. But if it was done, Las Vegas would have to eat some of that contract up before he was to come to Baltimore. But Devontae Adams has talked highly of Lamar Jackson. Remember that, y'all. And I don't think they had that chemistry like on the field. I don't know if they worked together during any off-season trainings, which I don't think they did. But if he wants to win, I think him being with us is maybe the best option. And the more so reason that I'm open to Devontae Adams is because we tend to go away from our bread and butter in the AFC Champion games, certain playoff games when we play in certain teams. So if we were to pass the ball, I trust Devontae Adams and his young company to help us come out with a win. I mean, I'm gonna be real. That would give me more confidence if we went strictly passing. So I don't think it's going to take us out of whack. If anything, I feel like it can be a boost to when it really matters.
And I would say, unless we're adding Devontae Adams, I wouldn't want to go after any receiver. Like, I don't necessarily think Hopkins or Sutton is the play, because that wouldn't make us that much better, right? Like, Hopkins doesn't have the speed anymore. He's honestly struggled to get open in Tennessee. Sutton, he's not a bad player, but again, he's not someone that's getting open. You just have to throw him the jump ball. That's not the type of offense we want to have in these tough games, right? It's a nice thing to fall back on, but in reality, like, if I'm looking at what we want, is we want guys that are getting open. And Bateman's getting open, and Zay is getting open, and all of our tight ends are blocking very, very well. Like, Devontae Adams is one of the best route runners in the league. So if you add him, he's getting open, right? I wouldn't hate a guy like Amari Cooper, maybe. Like, he's someone that can get open. But again, that's someone that you're trading from a division rival who probably doesn't want to trade him to you. And you're not going to necessarily be able to pay him anyway. And the Browns are in contract salary, just bottomless pit. I think if they trade, like someone was saying, like if they get rid of Watson, they'll have to like trade a first round pick. Just trade a first round pick with Watson to a team for nothing to get rid of him. But it's brutal. And this Ravens team, I don't necessarily think they're in need of making any moves. We're going to have to see how they play against Jaden Daniels with good wide receivers, but very different wide receivers. Terry McLaurin is a, physical, big body wide receiver that can make difficult catches, in his sleep. And then, guys with him like De'Ami Brown is kind of a deep threat wide receiver, a little bit undersized. So it's going to be a little bit different than, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, but it's still like, hey, this is a good wide receiver room with a good quarterback that's mobile, as well as some competent running backs with Brian Robinson. And I think Austin Eckler was able to come back this last week from his injury. So, we can't count out Washington. A lot of people are trying to do that right now. Don't count out Washington. Should be a really good game. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, me too, man.
This Ravens secondary, if the Ravens win, the secondary is going to have to step up. Do you have anything else you want to talk about? There's not a lot going on this week.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not a lot. I mean, right now it's just, Baltimore versus DC. It's a lot of banter going on. My defensive coordinator for my football team, he's Southeast DC born and raised guy. I'm Baltimore all day, every day, West Side. You know what I mean? That's where I reside. He's humble. He's not doing too much talking. Some of my coworkers, they command the fan, excuse me. They talk and they talk. And, I love it, man. I love it. It's always good to see the Commanders. I keep wanting to say the Redskins. come out there. I mean, Doug Williams is even out there on the sidelines. Shout out to the legend. Supporting the franchise, supporting young Jaden Daniels. I mean, shout out to him as well because I mean he definitely is one of the hottest. I'll say it again. He's one of the hottest rookies out there. He's bringing a lot of magic to the District of Columbia, whose field is in the state of Maryland. Just saying. Um, so I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking to see, how these young competitors battle each other. But one thing I do point out there, and I tell Commanders fans all the time, is the last time we played against you all in the regular season, it was against a Heisman Trophy rookie quarterback in RG3. I'm not wishing nothing bad on Jaden Daniels. I'm not trying to mess up his career, but when it comes to rookie quarterbacks, we get them together, and it don't matter what week it is. We play good ball against them.
Yeah, the Ravens are typically pretty good at messing up rhythm and shaking rookie quarterbacks. I expect a lot of blitzing, but blitzing from our more athletic guys because we don't want situations where you blitz someone and Jaden Daniels, who's very athletic, you don't want him to just like break the sack and then all of a sudden because you ran cover zero, like he's running in open space, like blitzing guys like Kyle Hamilton, blitzing guys like Marlon Humphrey, guys that can get to the quarterback and bring them down. Hopefully they'll do that. Hopefully they'll do it well. But everyone, thank you all so much for watching. Subscribe for more. And we'll see you again next time.